let's select the faces. For example, this face, click on create one. Here in this video we are going to learn the fundamentals of massing in Revit. In massing in Revit we have two different environments. We have mass RFD and also we have some environments for creating mass families, for example panels and adaptive families. Now we are in a mass environment and want to create some basic forms to get familiar with the mass environment in Revit. As you can see, it's a completely different environment in comparison with the project that we have, and there are some new tools that you can see in here. For example, we have models, reference, and reference plans, and you need to know that these tools have different functions in comparison with the project tools. And there are some rules that you need to obey to work with mass. For now, we are going to work with just model lines, and we will talk about the reference lines after that. And you can see we don't have any extrusion, sweep, revolve or anything like that in here, but we can create them in here too, and also we can make them much more advanced in this environment. For example, let's just create a line. Let's set our work plane on the level 0 and in here. And let's create a line. Just click on line and you can create a line. We'll talk about the option bar tools we have in here. Also, we have two options that we will talk about later. Let's just create a line. Let's go to the top and let's create a simple line in here. And let's create a rectangle in here. I want to create some basic shapes and I start to create some basic shapes from these basic curves. And let's create a polygon in here. Let's put the size on 8. I want to have also maybe a circle too. Okay, that's great. And we have these shapes too. This is the beginning of your modeling process. In massing in Revit, we'll start from the lines and we will go to the surfaces and we go to the solids. Okay, that's the workflow that you need to obey. For example, we have this line. When you select it, and you just need to click on create form in here, and then you will have a surface as easily as that. And when you click and when you select the surface and when you click on create form, then you will have a solid in here. We will talk about the manipulation and form manipulation later, but you can edit all of the parts in this model that you can see in here. So that is fully parametric. Okay, we will talk about these parts later. And we have a rectangle in here. Let's select the rectangle and let's click on create form. We can see we have a box right now and we can manipulate it and we can change the thickness and we can change all of the sides too with these manipulation gizmos that we have, and that is really easy. Now we can do the same thing for our polygon in here. As you can see, we are creating extrusion with this just simple tip that I told you. But for circle, when you click on create form, you will have two options. You will have a sphere. When you click on a sphere, you will have a sphere. And let's create another circle. And when you click on create form and you click on cylinder, you will have cylinder. So there are two different types of forms that you can create with circle. Let me, for example, bring this face of the mass to here, and let's bring it to a little bit lower. And that was for extrusion parts. The next tool that we want to learn is blend. How we can create blends in here. For example, let's create a circle in here, and also let's create another polygon from the center of this circle. Just press C to have the circle. Now let's create a polygon in here, maybe this one. Now let's select the polygon. Let's go to the front view and let's move it a little bit up. Both of them are top, so let's bring one of them to the 0 level. Let's bring the circle to the 0 level. Just select it and click on move. Make sure to activate the disjoint and then bring it to the level 0. And now we have two profiles to work with. And then you need to select both of them, then click on create form. That's the way that you can create blend in massing environment. You can manipulate the shape 2. Also you can rotate it and you can achieve to some different shapes too. Make sure to deactivate the addition and let's rotate it, and you can see it will be a twisted shape for you. But the next one is revolve. Let's just double click on this plane. Now your work plane is now here. Let's turn on the show to see the work plane. When you double click on a reference plane, you are setting your work plane. So that's the easiest way to set up your work plane. And now that's great. Let's maybe select this one and double click on this one, and now let's create a revolve in here. To create a revolve, just go to the line again, and in here let's create a shape that we want to revolve. Maybe that's great. Now let's create a line in here. Let's bring it to the center, and let's bring it to level 0. And we need to connect these two together. Let's create a line, and let's create a single line in here, and let's do a trim this one with this one. And when you select it, it is a closed polygon. When you select it and then you click on create form, you can see it is just a extrusion. But how we can change that? You just need to select this line that you have, press tab once or twice to select this part, and then bring it up a little bit, something like this. And now let's select all of them and let's click on create form. You can see it doesn't work. Let's select the line again and let's bring the line a little bit lower, and let's select this and this, click on create form. Now you can see we have our revolve in here, and that is too easy to create. But because this is a surface, it's kind of illusional that you can see in here and doesn't have any thickness, so it is a little bit off. Let's press Ctrl Z again and let's create a thickness for our shape that we have. Let's click on pick line and let's put it on maybe 200. Let's press tab. We can press tab in here, unfortunately, and we need to create these parts for ourselves. Now let's select this part and this part, then click on create form. Now we can see we have a right revolve for ourselves. So that was the revolve, and now let's create the next one. The next tools that we want to create and we want to simulate them in mass environment are sweep and sweep blend. Those are easy ones. For example, let's just double click on this reference plane and let's create a sweep and sweep blend. Let's create a pass with a spline that we have in here for our sweep. Let's create a pass in this part, maybe something like this, and let's select one of them and let's create a copy, and we want to create a sweep and sweep blend in each of them separately. Okay, that's great. And now for this one, I'm going to create a sweep. But how I can do that? You need to place a point first. We have a point in here. You can place point and you can create a profile at top of our point. Just click on point and select wherever on the line you want, but it is better to have a point at the start and at the end of your line to have a, we can say, right sweep. Click in here and also click on here and make sure to place it on your face, and make sure to your drawing style is on drawn face to in this situation it will work. Other than that it won't work. And now we have our points. You need to click on set and go on the points, and in here you can see we have a face in here. Click on it and set your work plan on this, and again let's create a circle in here, maybe with the dimension of maybe 1000. Also again let's set our work plane in this side. Let's create another circle at top of this point with 1000 units. And now let's select all of the circles and all of the profiles and the path. The order is not that important. You can select this and this and this, or you can do the reverse. or any order you want, the Revit will recognize it. Let's select all of them, but don't select the points. Click on create form, and now we have a clean sweep in here. That was so easy, and now let's create our sweep blend. The advantage of sweep blend in Revit mass environment is that you can create sweeps with thousands of profiles, with infinite profiles. You just need to place points. For example, let's place point at the start and at the end, and also another one at the middle, maybe, or here. Now let's set the first one, and let's create a circle with about 2000 units. And let's set the second one, and let's create a polygon in here with this size. And now let's create another circle or another polygon with more sides, maybe, or less sides, 6 sides in here with a smaller size, so, or bigger size. Okay, that's easy. Let's select all of them and just click on create form, and now you have a really weird shape, but this is the best shape that Revit can create with all of these profiles that you've assigned it to. But before going to the next section, make sure to like this video to help us create more tutorials like this. But all of these were sample and basic forms. How we can improve them? We can improve them by using voids. All of the forms that we've created so far are solids, and we can create some voids too to make sure that we can create more complex shapes with our voids. For example, let's delete these and let's assign the work plane on this side. Now let me create a really simple extrusion, and then we can create a pyramid from this part, or maybe this side. Okay, that's great. Let's go to the lines and let's create a rectangle, something like this. And now let's select it and let's create a form, and let's bring it out, maybe something like this. And in here we can create a pyramid. But how we can do that? You can see we have, when we click on create form, Revit is going to create solids for us. But how we can create voids and we can subtract them from the solid parts. For example, let's go to the line again, and in here you can see, let's learn the difference between these two styles, drawing styles that we have. We have drawn face and also we have drawn work plane. When we put it on drawn face, it will just recognize the face that you are creating, the lines at top of it, and it doesn't care about the work plane that you have. But when you select on drawn work plane, it doesn't care about the faces, and it only creates the lines on the work plane that you're in. So that's the difference. And now let's go back in here and let's click on line, and in here click on drawn face, and from the middle go to here and let's create some shapes like this. Also, I want to create the exact part for this part. We can select these parts, press tab, and let's create a mirror, DM, and let's create a mirror from here. And now we can create we can trim these two together. Now let's select this shape, and in here, when you want to create on form, don't create on solid form and create on void form, and will give you a void form, and you will bring it out from your shape. And when you click outside, it will subtract those parts from the main parts. And if you want to select it, just go around these parts in here, press tab, and then you can select your void. You can uncheck the cut geometry, and you can see your voids better. But when you select it, press tab, and when you select it and you check the cut geometry parameter, it will cut the geometry. Now let's create a reference plane at this side, something like this. You can see I can't create it because we need to set our work on the plan. And now let's create a reference plan at this side. And now let's set our work plane on this. And now let's go to the right part, and let's do the same thing for this part too, from here to here. Now we can delete one of these, and then we can press TR and we can trim these together. Now let's click on it and let's create a word form, and let's bring it at this side. And now we need to cut this from this. How we can do that? Go to the geometry and click on cut, select the solid form, press tab twice, and let's select the void. And now you have a pyramid, and this is a true pyramid. There is no point and tip at top of it. But there are some other ways to create pyramids too. I'm just doing some complex shapes to make you more familiar with the mass environment. Let's create a pyramid with using blend technique. Let's create a rectangle in here. And now let's bring it up about maybe a few meters. Deactivate the constraint and let's bring it something around here. Now let's go back to the top, click on rectangle, make sure to put it on the round work plane, and let's create another rectangle, and this time this is in here. Let's select both of them and let's click on create form, and now we have a simple box in here. Let's bring the top to here. Now we have an option in each face that you can rotate them. Also, you can scale them. For example, let's scale this part. Let's click on scale, and let's scale it from center to from some points around here. And click once in here, click again in here, and now you can make it much smaller. But it can't be none. It needs to have a really small number. For example, like this. And now we have a pyramid with another technique, and you learn about scaling the faces. You can create voids on anything. For example, let's create another box. Let's learn another kind of shapes that we can create with voids. Let's bring this on level 1, and let's create a form in here, and let's bring it up. And now let's set our work plane on this side, and let's create some lines in here. I want to create a Islamic arc in here, maybe something like this. And then from here, let's create an arc to here. Let's create an auxiliary line from the center. And now let's create an arc from here to here. And that's great. And I want to create a mirror from this side to the other side. Press MM. And now we have these lines in here. And let's close them at the bottom. And now let's select it. And now we can select this and click on void form and bring it outside from this part. And now you have your void in here. You can select your void, press tab a few times, and then click on it. And then you can create a copy rotate from it. Let's create a copy rotate from it. Let's click on rotate. Make sure to check the copy. And now you can see we can create it because we need to set our work plane on the plane. Now we need to select the void again. Let's click on it, go to the top, and now let's create a copy rotate from this one. Okay, let's create a 90-degree copy in here, but you need to make sure that place it at the right place. Click on move. We can see the voids right, so let's uncheck the cut geometry for a second. And now let's select the void, and now we can move it much easier to the center of this part. And also this is great for me. And now check the cut geometry parameter, and now you can see we have a really amazing shape at the bottom of this part, and we created the Islamic form with our mass environment really easy. That was a completion between voids and solids, and you can create much more and much more with these shapes. You just need to exercise and make your minds more creative with these shapes that you have. All of the forms we created so far are so simple, but we can make them complex with just two tools, edges and profiles. Now let's do some great things with edges and profiles, and they will free the full potential of mass for you. Okay, now let's create a box in here, but before that, let's set our work plane on the plane part. Now let's create a rectangle, and let's select it and click on create form. This is a simple box that you can see, But when you select any form, any part of the form, it doesn't matter. You can select the edges, you can select the faces, or even you can select the points. It doesn't matter. You just need to select one part of the form. And then you have two parts in here. You have add edges and you have add profile. Let's click on add profile first. And when you go to the edges, you can see you can create profiles and you can create sections around the shape that you have, across the shape that you have. Let's create a profile in here. And now you can see when we go in here, we have additional edges, and when we press tab a few times, we have our profiles in here. Now we can move this profile separately, and it will act as a muscle for the whole shape. You can achieve much more different shapes with this technique. Let's go to the profile again here. Now, for example, let's scale it and let's make it smaller. And now you can see it is totally different in comparison with the first shape that we had. That was the profiles that you can create sections, and we can do the same thing for some other parts too. For example, let me delete this one. And now let's set our work plane on this side, or we can just double click. And now let's create a extrusion in here. Let's create a profile in here. Let's again select one of these parts, one of the elements of this shape, and then click on select add profile. And now you can create profiles along the vertical part, because we created the box in this work plane. And now that's great. Let's select on this. Let's create a one in here, and let's press tab, and you can do all of the things right now. You can bring it up, and it will create a really amazing shape for you. Let's select the profile. Let's click on rotate and make sure to uncheck the copy. Now let's rotate it about. Also you need to deactivate this joint. Now let's rotate it about 45 degrees. You can see we have a completely different shape in comparison with the first box that we had. But what about the edge? About the edges, let's test them on a simple shape, and then we go to the more complex shapes too. Now let's select one of the parts, and when you click on add edges, you can see you can create some edges around here. For example, in here you can create edges, and also in here you can create them too. But what's the point of them? When you have edges, you can select them and you can bring them up, and it will create a different shape for you. So it completely depends on you. You can do some manipulation with the edges that you have, and you can deform your form completely by yourself with edges and profiles. You may have understand that editing profiles and edges is really too hard and we can't find them, but we have an X-ray mode that it can help us. But as I said, finding the edges and finding the points is really hard in some complex shapes, and you may encounter with some problems to find them. How we can make it much easier? Just select one element of your form and then click on X-ray, and now your points and edges are completely visible, and you can adjust each part really easily by your own. And also about these gizmos that you can see in here, when you press space, it will change the coordinates in here. But for this one, it doesn't make any difference. But for example, let's select it for this one. Now we are in global coordinates. But when I press space, it will go in local coordinates, and you can see it is much different, and you will achieve different things with this tip that you've learned in here. And if you want to turn off the X-ray, just click on X-ray again, and you can select another shape and can turn on the X-ray for that one too. Also, don't forget, if you want to support us and you want to get access to all of the exercise files, make sure to check the Patreon link in the description. The forms that we've created so far were in mask.rft environment. We can load it into our project, but if you want to model your mask in context of your project, you can use mask environment in projects. For example, for this part, let's select this part. So let's select this one. And let's create a section box for this part. I want to bring them in section box. Also, let's make the section box a little bit bigger. Okay, that's great. And for example, in here, I want to create a roof for my parking, and this is a complex roof, so I need to use a massing environment in Revit. And creating it in another template and bring it in is a little bit difficult to understand the exact shape that we need. So we want to create it in here, and let's bring it a little bit in here too. And now I want to create a roof in here, but with a complex shape. Because I can't create it with simple tools, I need to use masses. Okay, let's go to the massing hand side, and in here click on in place mass, and it will tell you that you need to turn on the masses. Okay, got it, I got it. Let's name it parking roof. Now let's create a reference line in this part and this side. I will talk about the reference line, but right now just create two reference lines in here. We're just going to use them as our work planes, because we don't have any work plane in here. You can set your work plane to the place that you want. Because I don't have any great place to set my work plane in here, I will set my work plane maybe on this part. Now that's great. I just want to have a reference plane on this level, and let's create a reference line in here, also in here, and let's put the style on hidden to see our reference line better. You can see it, the reference line will give us some work plane. Let's set our work plane at the front plane of this one, and let's turn on the show, and now we can see our parts. For example, let's create another copy from this reference line at the middle of this. We want to create a roof with three profiles. Let's set our work plane on entry level, and let's select this one, and let's create a copy at the middle of this part. Now that's great. Let's set our work plane again on the front side of this. Now let's create our profiles. For example, let's go to the model line and let's create a profile with tools that we have. And this time we're going to use spline true point, which is a 3D spline, and will give you different points to manipulate the spline. Okay, let's select this one and let's put it on. Make sure to put it on the round work plane. Now let's create a roof in here. I don't care about the height right now, just create it, something like this. Okay, that's great. Let's set our work plane at the middle one, and let's create another profile for the middle one, and make sure to put it on the round work plane, and let's create something like this with different style, create a wave for ourselves. Let's do the same thing for the third one. With the simple tools, this was impossible to create something like this. Let's select all of them, and now click on create form, and you have a great surface in here. Let me put it on shaded. You can see the face much better. But what's the point when you just have the surface and you can't create any actual Revit elements? But maybe you're asking yourself what the needs of this modeling and how it can help us. These are some simple forms and there are no walls, roofs and floors. But the good news is you can. For example, let's click on just finish, and now when you are in project, when you go to the massing hand side, you can see we have curtain wall, we have roof, we have wall, we have floor, and we have all of the tools that we want. So that's really easy to create walls, roofs and curtain walls according to the faces that you've created. For example, let's assign a roof to this one. Let's go to the roof, and in here, because this is a really complex shape, we need a thin roof. Let's click on edit type and let's click on duplicate, and let's put the thickness on maybe about 5 centimeter or 50 millimeter. Click on OK, click on OK. Now select the face and then click on create roof. Now when you press VG and when you turn off the mask, you can see the mask is turned off in here, but we have two options for showing mask, the VG and also in here. Now you can see the roof, and you've created your roof according to the complex face that you've done with mask environment, and you can do the same thing for curtain wall that we will do it in the next exercise. You can see I just created some tools in here, and let's select these circles together and let's click on create form, And let's do the same thing for these polygons, and let's select the circle part, and let's click on X-ray, and let's select one of them, and let's change the number to something bigger, or you can just change it with this gizmo. You can see it is impossible, so let's change the number. Let's put it on 5,000, and you can see it will be bigger. And for this one, let's put it on maybe about 5,000 again, and it is something like this. And for the base one, this is great. Let's select these parts too, and let's do the same thing for this one. We can select these parts, and we can do a scaling for this one. And let's create a scale, and let's do the scale to this, and let's make it bigger, or maybe smaller, something like this. And that's great. Let's go to the shaded, and let's turn off the X-ray, and let's see the shape that we have. And now we can we can assign floors, roofs, and all of the things to these parts. Let's click on finish. The first part that we want to create is our floors. For the part, we need levels. Let's go to the north part, and let's create some additional levels. Now we have some floors. Let's go to 3D, and let's select the forms that you have. Click on mass floors in here, and let's select all of the levels that you have. Select all of them, click on finish. Now you can see we have some mass floors, and also we can do some analysis with it. I have a Revit Advanced and also Dynamo Advanced video in here. You can watch it afterwards. And we can also assign real floors to these floors that we have here. Go to the massing and side and click on floor and select the appropriate type that you want. For example, generic, and let's select all of the mass floors, and then click on create floor, and now we have our real floor. Now it's the time for our walls. Click on walls, because these are some complex walls. You need to adjust thin walls, maybe can work for us. Let's select the wall, and in here put it on pick face, and let's pick the face that you have. For example, let's do something like this, and that's the wall that we have. Also, we can have our curtain wall too. Let's click on curtain system, and let's put it on this, and let's select the faces. For example, this face, click on create one, and let's do this exact thing for these parts too. You can select multiple faces too. Click on create system, and that's great. Let's turn off the mask, and now you can see we have our walls and parts. But what about the roof? For the highest part, you need to assign roof instead of floor. Let's select the roof, and let's select both of them and create roof, and let's turn off the mask. As you can see, we just created a great shape for ourselves. Let's change the color of it, or let's change it to something else. Now it is much better. We can do some modification to the curtain system and all of those parts, but there are some advanced tips that we will cover in future videos. One of the main usage of mass is to create and model your building in context of your site. For example, I've extracted this PDF from Google Earth, and we want to design a building. For example, in this site that you can see in here, I want to model in context of the site in this project. So for the first step, I will create a project, and I will bring the PDF from insert and also import PDF, and then we can create some main lines, for example the street and also the line that we have in here. I can't hide this one, and then I can create a CAD file from this. For example, let's save it on our desktop, and then we can leave the temporary and isolate on. Go to the file, create a new mass file for this one, and then we can import CAD, and it is another alternative way to bring our CAD file in our mass environment. Let's unpin it and let's bring it in here, and now we have some references to work with, and this is our site, and these are the lines that we need for our building placement, so they will help us in our building placement. And let's pin it again. Now I don't want to select it, so I will uncheck the pinned element selection. Now that's great, and then we can start to build our model around this side that we have and our side model. But before that, it is better to make this vertical and horizontal to be able to work much better. So let's activate the pin select elements and then unpin it, and now let's align this with this, or if you can't do that, let's move it first from this side to here. Now let's rotate it, let's change the placement, and let's align it to this line. Okay, now we are good to go, and now we can create our building according to our site. For example, I will create a big extrusion in here. I'm creating model lines, something like this. Now that's great. Let's select the model line in here, and let's create a create form, and make sure to pin your file again to prevent from any movement, and make sure to activate the pin select elements too. Now you can specify the height of your project. For example, you can create some levels in here, assign 12 meter, and let's create a level for that, and let's go to 3D and let's bring it, or you can align the top of your building to here, and I want to create a void in here. Let's go to the top, and let's create a void. These are some examples for form creation, and then we are going to use this volume, and we are going to use this concept to create our building. Let's create a rectangle, and let's put it on the round face, and let's create it in around here maybe, and let's create a setback on our building in this side. Now let's select it, and let's create a void form, and let's bring it down. Also, you can select the face and you can bring it down, and you can use something like push pull in a SketchUp. And now I'm happy with it, and then you can save this file, for example mass. I'll put the files in Patreon, so make sure to check there for files. And then let's load it into our project. Let's place it in here, and with these lines, I can use these lines to place our building in here. Let's move it to here, to this corner, and then I can rotate it easily. Let's change the placement, and let's rotate it to this part. Now we have our building in the right place. You can see it in 3D. Let me delete the previous mask. Okay, now this is the mask file that we have. Now we are good to go to work with this, and now we can create some other buildings for our surrounding. And also we can do the massing inside, and we can create walls according to our project. For example, we can go here and we can assign walls to each side that we want, and also this side. And then we can go to curtain walls, curtain systems, and we can create curtain systems for each part we want. For example, this one, and yeah, and also this one. Let's create and create, and then let's assign some volumes too. And then you can create a roof for it, for here, and also for here. Let's create a roof, and let's go to the floors. But before that, you need to select the mass, and then you need to click on mass floors in here, and let's create floors for all of the parts. Click on OK. Now if we have our mass floors, then we can go to the floors, and we can select all of the mass floors, and then we can create floors according to them. And then you can turn off the mask, and now you can add any element you want. For example, you can add windows, you can add anything you want. That was it, and you can also watch this parametric wall in Revit video that you can advance your skills in parametric modeling in Revit.